Today we are going to compare the modern WWE roster to the Attitude Era rosters. Who does Stone Cold Steve Austin remind me of? If I had to compare Sami Zayn to somebody, who would it be? What about LA Knight? Yeah, that's an easy one, right? The Rock. That's the first one we're going to go with. LA Knight is The Rock, and you might be thinking, no way that they are comparable. The Rock is so much more famous. Yeah, he's so much more famous, but I'm saying that when I see LA Knight right now, I see The Rock from yesteryear. The catchphrases, the crowd interaction, it's all about his promo, and that's where his money-making ability is. Logan Paul is Shawn Michaels. Think about this. The ladies love him, the kids love him, and they both have punchable faces. When they are just being their heel, smirky self, you just want to deck them. Logan Paul and Shawn Michaels definitely know how to play a crowd, an audience, get viral moments, make the most of their TV time, and just captivate and get everyone to hate them, and their in-ring abilities is great. What about comparing this Winged Eagle belt to that Smoking Skull belt? Because you can win them both. All you gotta do is subscribe to the channel and comment. Once I hit 10,000 subscribers, I'm gonna pull a random comment, and that'll be the winner. I'll contact you and say, hey, which belt do you want? And I will send it to you. No charge, all free. All you gotta do is help me become that full-time YouTuber by commenting and subscribing. This is a long video. Let's keep going. Next, we got Gunther. Hear me out. Bret the Hitman Hart. Both foreign. Okay, yeah. Both not great on the mic, but definitely could hold their own. And in fact, I think they're both underrated. But the thing that really goes for Gunther and Bret Hart is their in-ring ability. Just like Rock and LA Knight were their mic skills and not their in-ring ability, Gunther and Bret Hart are all about the in-ring ability. Bray Wyatt, R.I.P. He's still part of the modern roster, and we're just going to go with an easy one. The Undertaker. Simple. I don't even think we need to really explain it. Bray Wyatt was definitely this generation's Undertaker, and let's go with another simple one. His brother Kane? Well, that's Bo Dallas right now with Uncle Howdy. And it's fitting because they're brothers, and Kane and Undertaker, brothers. Very fitting. The Wyatt Six, though, the group, what I'm going to actually do is compare them to Raven's Flock. And you're like, wait a minute, Raven's Flock, wasn't that WCW? I said I'm comparing modern wrestlers to the Attitude Era, and the Attitude Era encompasses WCW. Haha, loophole. But yeah, I would compare them to Raven's Flock. Why aren't we doing Ministry of Darkness? That's an easy comparison. Is because Raven's Flock was more about family and rejected individuals in society that nobody wanted. Undertaker didn't really treat them as families or even rejects. He just treated them as soldiers in his army. Raven was more like a cult leader who had tricked everybody into believing that they had a place. Society had rejected them, but Raven would not, and that he was now their family. And that's what I believe Uncle Howdy has done to the Wyatt Six. Seth freaking Rollins is definitely the game Triple H, the architect of the Shield. Triple H being the one that held DX together, whether it was Shawn Michaels or it was the new DX that he actually led. They both used their groups as stepping stones into the main event. And then once in the main event, doing anything they need to do, turning on anybody, saying whatever they need to say in order to keep their position. The architect and the cerebral assassin, they will do whatever is necessary. Let's go with the final boss, The Rock. I already compared LA Knight to the Attitude Era's Rock, but here's the thing. The Rock is now a modern wrestler with his final boss character at WrestleMania 40. And the final boss, Rock, is Vince McMahon. Okay, I don't want to glorify Vince McMahon right now because the lawsuit stuff is still happening, so I will say, though, that Vince McMahon character was definitely one of the greatest characters of all time. The character, not the human, the character. The Rock definitely had those vibes going. This megalomaniac, this boss who could do whatever he wants. At WrestleMania 40, in the middle of the match, he's like, do not disqualify him. Changing the rules on the fly to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants. He can drop F-bombs, but nobody else can. Vince McMahon was the head honcho, and final boss Rock is the head honcho as a member of the board. Main event, Jey Uso is going to be Rikishi. And it's not because Rikishi's his dad, but it is very fitting. These are people that the crowd just absolutely loves. They have huge crowd interaction with Rikishi doing his dance and Jey Uso doing the yeet. Very, very popular, and yet forever in the upper mid card. There are not going to be a lot of women comparisons because the Attitude Era, let's just call a spade, didn't really treat the women's division very well. We had a women's revolution in the 2010s because it was treated so poorly in the 90s. But there were a few gems. We have Charlotte Flair. I'm going to compare her to Trish Stratus. I think these are the pinnacles. Who was the best in the Attitude Era? It was Trish. Who's the best right now? It's Charlotte Flair. Becky Lynch, I'm going to put with Lita. Lita was Trish Stratus's arch nemesis, and on some levels, Becky is Charlotte Flair's arch nemesis. Whoever is the better one of the two, it's always Lita who's going to be the most popular, just like Becky Lynch is always going to be more popular. Maybe Charlotte Flair's better in the ring, but Becky, the man, is the one that the crowd came to see. Paul Heyman, I'm comparing him to Paul Heyman. I'm cheating. There's no one to compare to Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman's so one of the kind, and he was around during the Attitude Era, and he's around now. AJ Styles, I'm going to make him Sting. Again, I'm reaching over to WCW. Why am I doing this? Because AJ Styles made his name outside of WWE, just like Sting made his name outside of WWE and WCW. Dominic Mysterio, I'm comparing him to his dad, Eddie Guerrero. But in all seriousness, Dominic Mysterio is definitely drawing on Eddie Guerrero energy right now. Is he as good as him in the ring? No. No. But as a character, as someone who can elicit a reaction from the crowd, get this side-by-side picture of the two. Now, there is a part of me that wants to put Dominic as Chavo Guerrero Jr. and not Eddie. There's always going to be the comparisons and this shadow over Dominic that he has to live up to Eddie Guerrero, just like there was always a shadow over Chavo Guerrero that he has to live up to his Uncle Eddie. So I do think there is a strong case that Dominic is Chavo, but I'm going to keep with Dominic being Eddie, and that's mainly because of the Latino heat aspect of things. And Latino heat has a mommy. We have Rhea Ripley. She's definitely China. They're both huge. They're both muscular. They both can probably beat up most of the male roster. R-Truth reminds me of a young K Quick, but if I had to be truthful, I would say that R-Truth is Al Snow. Both are comedy characters, people who can actually make the crowd laugh. Finn Balor is Owen Hart. Definitely a compliment to Finn Balor, but the reason why it sucks is because both of them are guys who are so good in the ring, who have been overlooked so many times, always just thrown into a faction to be, I don't know, just a good wrestler when they have so much more to offer. Finn Balor did just take over the Judgment Day, and we can still use a comparison with Owen Hart, because eventually Owen Hart got sick of things, and actually a lot of people forget that he was a co-leader, not just a member, but a co-leader of the nation with The Rock. He didn't really do anything for Owen Hart. Right now, even as the leader of Judgment Day, we can still compare to Owen Hart, just hopefully he has more success. Omos, unfortunately, I feel they pushed him too soon onto the roster. If you look at his early matches, they're horrible, but if you look at his last 3 matches against Seth Rollins, Brock Lesnar, and Braun Strowman, they were actually really good. But unfortunately, we can only judge Omos on his body of work, so I'm just going to compare him to Kurgan. Kurgan was just another big man who couldn't really do nothing. Honestly, I believe Omos is better, but there's your comparison there. I wanted to get Sable and Sunny in here because they were very, very instrumental in the early stages of the Attitude Era. A lot of people don't give them their credit. I did not like them, but I cannot deny they brought a lot of eyes to the product. Now, granted, it was maybe for the wrong reasons, but at the end of the day, they did, and I don't really have anybody I can compare them to except for maybe Maxine Dupree, and the reason why I do that is because Maxine Dupree, not good in the ring, kind of eye candy, just like Sunny and Sable were. However, I will say this for Maxine Dupree, she is actually training, she is actually trying, so who knows, maybe Maxine Dupree will eventually become Trish Stratus, someone who came as eye candy, a manager, and then transitions into a really great wrestler. Kofi Kingston is RVD, both really popular guys, both guys who did get to the top of the mountain, but then lost it and never really got an opportunity again. Plus, their moveset, just very innovative, very awesome, just you can't help but to love them. And they're both very chill characters. Chad Gable, Kurt Angle, that's an obvious one. We don't need to really talk about that, do we? Because it's true. It's damn true. Chad Gable is like the living embodiment of Kurt Angle. Samantha Irvin is Lillian Garcia. Both female ring announcers, both are amazing and both are awesome. Baron Corbin is Lance Storm. Both boring. I actually kind of liked Lance Storm because his boring gimmick was funny, but I would say that Baron Corbin, I'm just putting him with Lance Storm because they are just like very dull. Kevin Owens is Mick Foley. When I say Mick Foley, I'm not talking really Cactus Jack or Dude Love or Mankind. I'm talking actually Mick Foley, a guy who can take anything and make it work. This guy went from main eventing WrestleMania 38 with Stone Cold Steve Austin to Elias did not have a brother. That was literally the angle. You do not have a brother, and I'm going to prove it. And he made it work. You give Kevin Owens anything, it's going to work. Just an all-around player. He can be intense or he can be funny. He can be a good guy. He can be a bad guy. Whatever you need Kevin Owens to be, just like whatever you needed Mick Foley to be, that's what they will be and would be. Street Profits are Harlem Heat. We got Angelo Dawkins as Stevie Ray and Montez Ford as Booker T. You can just look at them and you know that one is destined for greatness and one is destined to be, I don't know, the Marty Jannetty. Ilya Dragunov, Ken Shamrock. When they get in the ring, that's when it's showtime, and both are just super intense. Damian Priest is Kevin Nash. Hear me out, hear me out. Both super tall guys. Both guys who carry themselves a certain way. Both guys who are very confident in themselves. Very just kind of chill, laid back, but going to get their one-uppings on you. Very hip, very cool presenting. I just see two big men who can go in the ring. Drew McIntyre, though, is Scott Hall. Again, two big men who are just very sarcastic, very troll-like, just smart for the business, and their moveset is really good. They can go in the ring, they can go on the mic, and they have a certain presentation, this snarky, sarcastic presentation that a lot of big men don't really have. Carlito is Goldust. Here we have just these veterans that are being kind of reduced to a comedy role because Carlito is now more of the comic relief of Judgment Day, and by the Attitude Era, Goldust was a comedy gimmick with his stuttering and his Tourette's and the artist formerly known, but hey, you know, not everybody's gonna be for the world title. Solo Sikoa is the big boss man. But you might see that as an insult, but I don't really think so. Big Boss Man, low-key, was one of the most dastardly villains of the Attitude Era. Big Boss Man would do anything. He started off as an enforcer, just like Solo Sikoa did, and when he got out on his own, this dude, he murdered a dog and fed it to the owner, Al Snow. When the Big Show's dad died, he literally took... When the Big Show's dad died, he literally took tow ropes to the casket and drug it around the funeral with the Big Show on top of the casket. Now you tell me that that's not a villain who will do anything. And if you look at Solo, I'm sorry, but that's classic. Solo Sikoa will do anything just like the Big Boss Man would. And so that's why those two are compared together. The Bloodline as a whole, I'm kind of putting them with like the Nation of Domination, just this really aggressive, mean group. And I would say Tama Tonga is like D'Lo. He has personality, but not quite enough to get too high on the card. And Tonga Loa is like Kama, in that he has no real personality. He's like, oh, I can fight. That's about it. Jacob Fatu, though, is Mankind. Hear me out. Both made their names and their reputations outside WWE, and when they finally got to WWE, everybody was like, uh-oh, look out, and they lived up to their reputation. Mankind being thrown off the Hell in a Cell, and just look what Jacob Fatu has done in the weeks he's been here. Jacob Fatu, just so much personality. Mankind, just so much personality. Both of these guys coming in with a reputation and living up to the reputation, willing to do what it takes to continue to be this monster that they are known to be. We already said the new bloodline was kind of like the Nation of Domination, but the old bloodline was like the Hart Foundation. This collection of elite talent that just like, whoa, with the head being Bret Hart, the head being Roman Reigns. You could not believe that they got this much strength together in a unit, and they were strong, and they were villains, and they were righteous, and it was awesome to see. Speaking of the bloodline, Roman Reigns, Hulk Hogan. Yep, I went there. He's Hollywood Hulk Hogan. This is a villain who was the top of the most popular faction, the strongest faction, and he had a stranglehold on the title just like Roman Reigns did. You might not like Hulk Hogan, but his importance to the business and his time as Hollywood Hulk Hogan was just unparalleled, just like the Tribal Chief's time as the Tribal Chief, top of the card for 3.5 years. Unparalleled. Not to mention, they were also good guys for about 10 years before this turn, and it's just like, hard to deny that. Braun Strowman is the Big Show, and you're probably like, oh, that's a good comparison. Actually, it's a bad comparison, because Braun Strowman and the Big Show are huge dudes who could do so much in the ring that big men shouldn't be able to do, and yet they're so mistreated. These guys should be monsters, and yet they become comedy acts. Once they started losing, they were never able to recover. And now, okay, Braun Strowman, you're a choo-choo train. Great. I'm using Booker T twice here, but I'm allowed to do it because I used Booker T for Montez Ford, and that was within Harlem Heat. And now I'm using Booker T in WWE, and he is Sami Zayn. I'm going right to Booker T himself when he said, Sami Zayn reminds me of myself. In that, you can give Sami Zayn just a little bit of airtime, 30 seconds maybe, and he would make the most of it to the point that that would be the talking point of the show. And Booker T said, that was what I used to do. I would have just a little bit of time, and I would maximize it to the point that they had no choice but to push me. And I could see that. Look at Booker T and said, tell me you did not just say that. The Spinneroonie, the five-time champion. Sami Zayn just in your face, and with the bloodline, you just laughed so hard that you could not help but to want to see Sami Zayn more with the bloodline. So I'm gonna go with Booker T's assessment on this one. Pete Dunne, Dean Malenko, both are good wrestlers. Both are really kind of short guys and just like really fantastic in the ring. I'm going to do Mark Henry twice. We're going to do Hall of Pain Mark Henry, which that's kind of cheating because this Hall of Pain Mark Henry was not in the Attitude Era, but I didn't have anyone for Bronson Reed. Bronson Reed is just this mean, big dude that reminds me of Mark Henry. I think this Hall of Pain moniker is justified with Bronson Reed because on Raw, he destroyed Seth Rollins. And so yeah, I'm definitely getting that vibe. Welcome to the Hall of Pain. Who's the other Mark Henry? Otis. Again, they kind of look alike, same stature, but we're doing Otis is the sexual chocolate Mark Henry from the Attitude Era. These are big dudes who could completely tear you apart, and yet they're in a comedy character. Akira Tozawa is Spike Dudley. Two small guys there to just get beat up, get thrown around by big guys. Bobby Lashley, even though his contract's almost up, definitely a modern wrestler. He reminds me of Lex Luger. Both of these guys, not great on the mics, but they are just jacked, and it's hard to say, yeah, that does not look like a wrestler. No, those two looks like they'll kill you. Luger would make it to the top, just like Bobby made it to the top, but they could never fully stay there, and it's probably because their personalities were a little dull. Rey Mysterio of today, I don't know. I guess I'll have to compare him to Rey Mysterio of yesteryear. Little different, but kind of the same. They've been just building Rey Mysterio for the last 30 years as the ultimate underdog. He was the ultimate underdog then. He's the ultimate underdog now. Shinsuke Nakamura is Tajiri. And yeah, you can be like, oh, that's an easy one because they're both Japanese. Well, yes and no. Yes, they're both Japanese. Yes, they didn't speak that much English, or at least they had such a strong accent that it was hard to understand their English, but they were able to make the most with their facial expressions and their body language. That's where their character really thrived. And they both spit mess too. Brock Lesnar, I'm comparing to Goldberg. Now, I'm not comparing ruthless aggression Brock Lesnar. I'm actually comparing modern Brock Lesnar, because modern Brock Lesnar, he's just about big power moves and tries to squash you as quick as possible, and that's what Goldberg did. Just all power, no finesse. Before The Rock became the final boss, it was almost like Brock Lesnar was the final boss in a championship run, and Goldberg, just huge deal when you were able to topple him as well. Ludwig Kaiser kind of gives off British Bulldog vibes. While he might not be as bulky as the British Bulldog, you can definitely tell he's in good shape and he's tough, and it just seems like their accent and their country of origin is a big part of who they are. Granted, one's from Britain and one's from Germany, but again, it's just that European flavor of wrestler that makes them remind me of each other. Not to mention, they always seem to be better in the supporting role than in a lead character role. No shade. Braun Breaker is definitely a byproduct of his family lineage. He is the only one I'm going to do two people for one person because Braun Breaker is the Steiner tag team. I'm not talking Big Papa Pump. I'm talking the Steiner tag team. He has the look and the feel of his dad, Rick, and he definitely talks and acts like Scott when he was part of the Steiners. And yeah, this is a big dude with big powerful moves, suplexes, Frankensteiners. He will eat you for breakfast and laugh about it just like the Steiners would to any rookie that came through the locker room. Sheamus is Fit Finlay. They're almost a one-to-one in regards to character. They wear the Irish thing on their sleeve. They just love to fight. The only thing is Sheamus was just more successful with it. I think they even both had shillelaghs at one time. So yeah, those two together, obvious choice. DIY, they are the Hollies. The Hollies do not get enough credit for their contribution to the Attitude Era. They were so great. And DIY, a lot of people don't feel they get their dues, their flowers for what they've done in wrestling in the current modern era. People say they have the greatest feud of all time in NXT. One's shorter than the other, and one's just a really strong, tough guy. LWO, El Gato del Fantasma, pretty much any of the Latinos, I'm just going to compare them to the cruiserweights of yesteryear. It just seems like they're more cannon fodder than anything. Maybe it's the language barrier or something, but they can never fully get over. They did have a better spotlight with the cruiserweight division in WCW. Of course, there are exceptions. Rey Mysterio, Dominic Mysterio, but for the most part, the luchador segment of wrestling has been treated the same for about 20 to 30, 40 years even in America. That's very unfortunate because I feel there's definitely opportunity, but Obafemi is on NXT and is the only NXT guy I am going to do right now. I just feel that this dude is the future. Gut reaction would be to put him side by side with Ahmed Johnson. Both big, tough guys. You do not want to get these guys mad, right? You cut them off in the highway and they stop you, you're apologizing. But here's the thing. I think Obafemi is way better than Ahmed Johnson. To me, he gives off Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner vibes, and you're like, wait a second, no way, because Scott Steiner, the dude was a maniac. He was so all over the place. Obafemi is not to that level, but we forget how much of a rookie Obafemi is. And the way when he walks into the ring, he's like, ooh, ooh, and he just exudes charisma, and I feel right now, you want to compare him to Ahmed Johnson, that's fine, but in a year or two, when it's all said and done, people are going to be saying, that's a Scott Steiner right there, a Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner, and in all the good ways. Karrion Kross is Steve Blackman. Both characters, just boring, not going to work. Great in the ring, but just like, AOP is APA, just some big dudes that are the muscle of the organization. A-Town Down Under is the New Age Outlaws. Austin Theory as Billy Gunn. They've got the look, they've got the body, they should definitely be destined for greatness, and yet something is preventing them from getting there. And it seems like Billy Gunn could only get so far as a singles competitor before he was back into a tag team, and that's what's happened to Austin Theory. And Road Dogg is Grayson Waller, the guy who can talk on the mic, who is not as good as his partner, but yet his mic skills are so good he overshadows, and he's the one that everyone knows, because Road Dogg sucked in the ring. I mean, he was okay, I guess, but, you know, we all know him for his ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, D-Generation X, probably brings to you his WWE Tag Team Champions of the World, the Road Dogg just his names, the BA, Billy Gunn, the New Age Outlaws. The New Day are the Hardy Boys. Hardy Boys, you could not hate them. New Day, you could not hate them. They tried to get us to hate the New Day, but through the power of positivity, we just couldn't do it, and they turned them face, and they've been face ever since. Odyssey Jones just debuted. He's definitely giving off draws, LOD energy here. The Legion of Doom, aka the Road Warriors, a historic greatest tag team of all time contender. They tried to include a third member into LOD, and that was draws. The New Day, unfortunately, they lost Big E, and on Raw, we had Kofi bringing in a third member, Odyssey Jones. It didn't look like Xavier Woods was too happy, so I wonder if Odyssey Jones is going to be playing this third wheel in the New Day, just like Draws played the third wheel in Legion of Doom, and it caused a lot of conflict between everybody in these teams. The Usos are the Dudley Boys, just like the Hardys and the Dudley Boys always fought. The New Day and the Usos are always fighting, and yeah, it's hard to, why do I feel that the Usos and the Dudley Boys are together? Maybe I'm just trying hard, but no, doesn't it kind of seem like it? You know, kind of like bigger wrestlers, but not so big. They can do certain kind of moves. They're good on the mic. The Dudleys could go on the mic, and so could the Usos. It just, I don't know, on just some basic gut level, those two teams remind me of each other. Edge and Christian, I would probably say pretty deadly if I had to. I would say, because Edge and Christian were actually definitely funny when they started doing their 5-second poses. That was funny. That was humorous. And Pretty Deadly is a humorous tag team. Pretty Boys and Pretty Boys. Two Pretty Boy tag teams. There you go. But if I had to do Christian as a singles competitor, he remind me of The Miz, actually. These are just guys who knew how to work a mic as a heel. But the moment you switch them to a good guy, it's like they can still kind of work the mic, but it's not the same, and you kind of lose interest in them. Andrade was very, very difficult for me. I'm gonna go with Eddie Guerrero, but not the Eddie Guerrero that I compared Dominic to. I'm comparing him to early WCW, like the first 10 to 20 episodes of Monday Nitro. Eddie Guerrero didn't have much of a personality. That's the Andrade I'm comparing him to. Great wrestler, but not much more. Randy Orton, RKO. The closest I came was Brian Pillman. If you had Psycho Randy Orton and you compared him to Psycho Brian Pillman, then maybe you could do that, but Psycho Randy Orton hasn't been around for a while. So if I had to compare him to anyone, you could say Jake the Snake Roberts, actually, where every movement in the ring has meaning. Everything he says has meaning. He's just very thoughtful and very much a predator. Jake the Snake was a snake in the grass, and Randy Orton is the Viper. Those two, very, very similar. Jake the Snake was ahead of his time. Technically, he was an Attitude Era wrestler, though, because Stone Cold Steve Austin beat him at King of the Ring to become the King, and that's where we get the Austin 316 catchphrase. So, you know, we could go there, but honestly, if I'm being honest, I'm looking at the Jake the Snake of, like, the WrestleMania 3 to 5 era to compare him to Randy Orton. But if I had to go Attitude Era, I guess I would say Crazy Randy with Crazy Brian Pillman. Carmelo Hayes, I would love to compare him to a young MVP. However, MVP wasn't Attitude Era. I'm going to reach just a little bit and say Buff Bagwell. And the reason why I say this is because these are high mid-carders, very egotistical. They know they look good. The way they present themselves and the confidence they have in themselves, maybe even too much confidence, they remind me of each other. But if I had to, a young MVP, that would probably be a better one. What about Cody Rhodes? Thought I forgot him. No, DDP, Diamond Dallas Page. These just bleach blonde, positive guys who are just like, you know, they will do whatever. They're going to get beat down, but they're going to get back up 100 times. Just super, super positive. And you can't help but to love him. The People's Champion, Dallas Page. Like, he used to call himself the People's Champion, and that's kind of like what Cody is kind of seeming like. Not like The Rock's People Champion, but more like Diamond Dallas Page People Champion. Hey, what do you want to talk about? Diamond Dallas Page, just a self-built man, just like Cody Rhodes. And last, but certainly not least, is Stone Cold Steve Austin, the champion of the Attitude Era himself, and I'm gonna go with CM Punk. You're like, what? Yeah, no, for real. Kind of ironic being that Stone Cold Steve Austin is almost downing the Steve Weiser and CM Punk is straight edge, but they are also very much anti-establishment, both of them, and they can go on the mic, but it's the anti-establishment thing that really does it for me, plus their connection with the crowd. Now, I will say that Stone Cold Steve Austin does have a lot of catchphrases, but I don't know. I don't think he really had to rely on his catchphrases to get the crowd with him like The Rock and LA Knight have to do. And CM Punk, he definitely doesn't have a lot of catchphrases, but he doesn't need the catchphrases to get the crowd with him as well. And Stone Cold Steve Austin and CM Punk just gonna always be at the top of the card. The fans are gonna love them no matter what. There's just something about them. They have this uniqueness to them that is just like, I don't know. It can't be replicated. And yeah, but it's their anti-establishmentness that makes them the one-to-one comparison. So that's my list. Did I forget anybody? I guess John Cena. John Cena is technically a modern wrestler. So who would I put him for? Yeah, I guess John Cena is Hulk Hogan, you know what I mean? The good guy version, the flag-waving Hulk Hogan, the superhero, Super Cena, Super Hogan. And no shade, he was just the ultimate good guys. Both of them were the ultimate good guys. What did you think of the list? Please comment below. Tell me if I forgot anybody or if you think you have a better comparison. Maybe you think that Cody is more like the Disco Inferno. I don't know, but you gotta tell me why. Put in the comment below so you can win the belt just like I said. And guys, girls, have a great day. Thanks for sticking with this really long video, but I hope you had fun. See ya!